Hello and welcome to another episode of the Trash Talk Podcast. I'm Sergej, and today I have Sergej. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing fine as well. And today we're going to talk
good to hear.
About a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, and that Sergej suggested. We're going to talk about tropes, and more specifically, is everything just tropes? Is it tropes all the way down?
It certainly feels that way sometimes.
Well, why do you think that is? Let's start there.
I mean, as you probably know, I mostly watch anime stuff. And even that, not that often anymore, but still, like, it feels like every show's either high school or, like, isekai of some kind. And on top of that, it just has, like, a bunch of other commonly seen tropes thrown in for good measure, and doesn't really have anything original to it, except maybe the character designs, but even that is arguably not always the case.
So that's interesting, because I can't really speak to anime as much, because while I'm not exactly entirely unknowledgeable on the subject, I'm definitely not that knowledgeable on, like, the larger trends. I don't watch enough anime to, like, be able to tell you what the current industry trends are. But I would say that there's something to say about how maybe the reason why there are a lot more tropes in shows is not just because they are putting more tropes into your shows, but also because more tropes are kind of crystallizing themselves out of the content, right? Because tropes are, at least in their origin, much more descriptive than prescriptive, right? It's to say that someone saw a pattern and then they gave it a name, right? And so every pattern that keeps recurring will eventually become seen as a trope. And so the more media there is, the more tropes there will necessarily be codified. And also, I feel like in some cases, people do sometimes, additionally to that previous point, kind of stretch existing tropes and also stretch what could be considered a trope to even further make it sound like there are more tropes than there are. Not necessarily just because they want to make it sound like there are more tropes, but also just sometimes just because, oh, hey, look, this is that trope. It's like, oh yeah, hey, look, it's a 5-man band. It's just, yeah, there are 5 characters, but they don't really fit the archetypes. And stuff like that, where it's like, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, there's the 5-man band, there's the duo, there's the trio. I mean, there's like any number of characters can be identified with a trope just based on number of characters. But if they don't fill the roles that are commonly associated with that trope, then maybe something.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I can see that being the case for, like, number of characters, but, like, being transported into another world, or, like, everything taking place in a high school, that's kind of...
Okay, so...
Best is when both happen.
Wait, as in high schoolers get sent to another world, or someone gets sent to an otherworldly high school?
Yes.
Porque no lo estás. Okay, so, I mean, obviously, high school is a setting, right? And that is very, very much a setting that has existed a lot, and I think is never going to cease existing because, first of all, it's something that I think most people resonate with on some level, because if you set something in an office, for example, not everyone has worked in an office, right? Like construction workers or like entrepreneurs, right? Like, just there's a bunch of different, like even like sales reps is not really like sales rep might be, but like a salesman on the floor, like a traveling salesman, whatever. Like, there's so many jobs in the world. I don't have to list them all. As a matter of fact, I think this podcast would never end if I tried. That don't work in an office, right? So even though we maybe understand on the basic level, right, a lot of the references you could make to, like, oh yeah, you know, that one guy always that does that thing that every office has, right? You can't really, like, not everyone will resonate with that, but like everyone's gone to high school. Not everyone, but like most people have gone to high school. And even if you haven't gone to high school, maybe you've gone to a middle school, which is arguably the same thing, just with slightly younger kids.
Yes.
And isekai is more of a subgenre.
I'd still argue that, like, you can still do, like, office references and stuff like that.
I mean, obviously, The Office is literally a very popular TV show, but you know, it's just that thing where it's like, it's a relatable setting, and in some ways, it's the most relatable setting. As education increases around the world, right? Like, just about everyone has experience with at least some basic primary and secondary education. So I can see why that would be a popular setting. Plus, there's a whole thing about the demographics of your main characters, where if you want, depending on what audience you want to appeal to, it makes sense to pick certain age ranges. And there's a thing where, old people might not necessarily as much want like an old person protagonist as much as they want to kind of, if they put themselves in the shoes of the protagonist, would maybe want to go back to their glory days, while younger kids oftentimes look up to slightly older kids. And so it kind of naturally kind of squishes down the age range, and thereby also the relevant life experiences. Again, like you can do the thing where you have universities, you can have like entry-level jobs, that sort of stuff would still work. And even then, obviously, it doesn't have to be a real-world setting or real-world equivalent setting. And you can still have characters that are outside of the framework, but there is kind of a reason why that sort of thing happens a lot. And obviously, at the end of the day, whatever the underlying reasons might be, tropes like that, and again, calling a setting a trope is once again, I think, stretching the definition of a trope maybe a little bit. But right, they do it because it works.
As annoying as that might be, yes.
I mean, I don't think there's anything inherently bad about having more content set in high schools. I think the problem is when that is to such a degree that it excludes other settings, right? Because there's only so much content being made in any given time frame, and so while that is probably an interesting number, obviously if like 90% of it is set in the high school, then obviously it's going to be a lot more difficult to find something that isn't. But I mean, based on what I'm watching, which
I actually should have looked at like the statistics of that, like how many shows are produced in a season and like how many of those are set in a high school.
I mean, yeah, fair enough.
That might have been a good statistic to get before this.
But I mean, what I'm watching, which is predominantly live action TV, I think is a little more diverse when it comes to settings. I definitely have seen a couple shows with high school settings as well. But I don't think it's that dramatic.
I mean, I'd imagine that they'd have, like, live action shows would have different sets of tropes or settings.
Yeah. To be fair, I think there's also just a lot of the types of shows that I'm watching, when you have like fantasy and sci-fi, they kind of naturally are very broad in what they do, because those are like, I mean, those are very broad genres. I mean, I do watch some of ground stuff as well, but then that kind of already inherently limited. And if you watch something like crime, for example, it's usually going to take place, in a police precinct or like, an FBI field office or something, as not really even as much as like a main setting, but more sort of as a in-between thing, in between investigations and stuff like that. If you have horror movies, they're oftentimes set in houses or other buildings, but like very often like set indoors. Not all of them, but a lot of them where it's like indoors. So, it's claustrophobic. I'm thinking specifically of slashers, honestly, but I just remembered. But like, like when there's like some scary guy who's in the building with you, you can't get out, and you have to run away. Like, okay,
yeah,
we all know the trope. And I mean, so I think it's partially that people do tend to see more and more patterns, and people also in some ways become more critical of the media that they watch. It has been said that everyone's a critic these days, and I think part of it's also that
I guess, yeah,
as budgets for movies and TV shows grow, although I'm not sure how much that applies to animation, it becomes a lot harder to convince a studio to make something completely original, right? Because it's a lot harder to estimate how well it's going to do. And so
better stick to something that has proven to be working than try something out that might completely fail. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's a good attitude, but I certainly can see where it's coming from.
Totally.
That's also why a lot of people tend to like, indie films and stuff like that, where it's like, oh yeah, this is like a small team. They can just kind of, like, they pool their money together and they just make whatever they want to, and so they can kind of get away, or like, they gotta an investor who's like, oh yeah, I'm willing to splurge a couple thousand to make this movie happen. And then they'll have like a $10,000 budget.
Also, the production cycle is much shorter.
Yeah. So time and money investment, I think, is also a big factor of why sort of patterns keep appearing. And also, of course, we talked previously about how there are a lot of sequels and prequels and spin-offs. And those, I think, also relate to that, where it's like, oh yeah, like we already have an existing fan base. Let's just cater to them. And obviously that, in turn, also reinforces a lot of the patterns, because if you're within a franchise, you're more likely to actually follow a pre-established pattern, right? It's been said that all the Marvel movies are the same. I think it's a bit of an over-exaggeration, but it's certainly true that they oftentimes have a lot of similarities, both in their structure and then in the tropes that they utilize, and also just in how they're presented, right? From like, oh hey, like insert joke here. It's like, oh, great. Yeah, this movie really needed more jokes. But they do them a lot because it's kind of how the movies work. It's like, I don't know. I guess that's why Werewolf by Night was so good. Okay, so Werewolf by Night is a short film set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's a short film. I think it was on a relatively small budget. I mean, like, small by like Disney standards, not small by like overall production standards.
All right, yes. Yeah.
And it was relatively short, and it was released straight to Disney Plus, right? So it's just a thing that they did. So they didn't. I think they didn't have as many constraints there. It was sort of inspired by older horror movies, right? Like the black and white horror movies, like Universal Monsters, that sort of stuff. And that one was actually pretty good, and it arguably didn't feel like a Marvel movie necessarily, even though, of course, they did use some Marvel characters. Although not ones that were pre-established in the MCU.
Okay.
My biggest problem with that movie, honestly, is the title. Because, first of all, Werewolf by Night was never one of the better hero characters.
Does it spoiler too much?
The werewolf, the titular one, only shows up like halfway through the movie or something. As a werewolf. And so it's like, okay, assuming that I didn't know who this character is going into it, right? It would be kind of cool to not be spoiled by the title of the movie. I would have called it Bloodstone, after the other main character, whose last name is just Bloodstone, and also her family. So Elsa Bloodstone is one of the main characters, and her father died, and he has this crystal, which is also known as the Bloodstone, that is being inherited, and that's kind of like one of the major things. And so, like, Bloodstone would make sense, as it's both the MacGuffin and one of the main characters. Yeah. And so it's like, that, right? Like, why did you...
Yeah, that would make so much more sense. Not having seen the movie at all, or heard of it like 5 minutes ago, I do totally agree with you.
and obviously that one also in a way was built out of a lot of tropes in some ways, because they are specifically imitating a genre, right? And so that, I guess I guess it's not an imitation necessarily, but I mean in some ways it is, because obviously some of the reasons why they were doing stuff back then in a certain way was because of like budget constraints, or because, black and white was just what it was. But so, and I think it did it very effectively, and if they tried to avoid tropes, it would have probably been worse. And so I think having tropes in general is not a bad thing. It's just if you're over-relying on certain tropes, and if certain tropes become too prevalent, and then I think the tropes you use should be used for a purpose, right? You shouldn't just be like, oh, hey, this trope works, so let's throw it in there, but rather, oh, right, we're trying to make something that looks like an old-school horror movie, so, let's shoot it in black and white. I'm not actually sure if they shot it in black and white, or if they just digitally made it black and white. But, they used...
They probably digitally made it black and white.
I almost assume so.
Don't think it would make sense to actually shoot it in black and white.
Anyways,
because you have so much more control if you do have color and then make it in post.
And they actually had a little bit of color and some splashes of color, I think, with like, lots of being red. But that is a special effect, maybe, and so that would have... it doesn't matter. And so it's like, oh yeah, they had some practical costumes because, first of all, they don't look as bad in black and white, and second of all, just how it would have been if it was actually an old school movie. And so they made some intentional choices that work for what they're trying to do, that might fall into some tropes, but they intentionally use those because of that. And so I think tropes aren't bad. They can just be used wrong or overused. I guess that's my takeaway.
I do totally agree with you.
I didn't realize we were going to talk about Werewolf by Night today. Honestly, that's just something that I thought about.
Topics lead to some unexpected turns in conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Anything else you want to say about tropes?
I mean, I think you summarize it pretty well at the end. Just use them intentionally.
Okay, I will just quickly add on to that.
If you have an idea to do something, like think of like what tropes that necessitates, and like if you actually want to follow them or not.
Yeah, and especially
I guess like
I think tropes coming up naturally. Like if you write a story and it happens to have some tropes, it's not necessarily bad. But you shouldn't necessarily be like, oh, this is a trope, let's throw that in if that doesn't serve a purpose. Conversely, just because you happen to have a trope in there, you notice it, right? Like it just naturally came up. You don't necessarily have to try to subvert it for the sake of subverting it, right? So there's also a thing where
that can get annoying in itself, yes.
Yeah, and I think I've talked about this before, but audience expectations are a great thing. You shouldn't necessarily fight against them. You should really pick and choose your battles.
Except you do it intentionally.
Yeah, exactly. It's that thing where you can leverage the tropes and genre conventions to, as like cinematic shorthand oftentimes, or not as even in cinema just, but where you can kind of play with those expectations in a way where, oh, right, I don't need to explain that if someone shoots a hole into the spaceship, they're going to get sucked out, and more likely than not, it's just going to keep sucking somehow, right, despite the fact that that's not how physics works. But, because that's just how that trope works. But it's like, okay, that's fine, right? But there's a lot of those sort of things. The example from where I heard someone talk about how the idea of like the how you can leverage tropes was like, oh yeah, if you're in a fantasy setting, right, and so this was for D&D advice. It's like, if your players go north and it gets colder, they're not going to be surprised, right? Like that's just how we expect it to work. Even though, of course, on the planet that we live, that's only true for like half of the planet. Although, based on both land mass and population, it's more than half. But it's like that's just how we expect things to go. So you shouldn't necessarily write a world where going north becomes harder just for the sake of it, because that just goes against their expectations. That makes it harder, like, to be immersed, and that kind of like just means you have to do more work to get your players invested in it. And the same thing would be true for movie viewers, where it's like, you just go with the expectations where it just makes your job easier, and then go against them if you have a specific point that you're, like, if you have a specific reason for it, basically.
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm done now.
Nice. Means we can move on to the fact of the week.
What is your fact of the week?
My fact of the week relates to why the Kinder Surprise or Kinder Egg is banned in the US. Because, like, previously I heard and like falsely believed that it's because of like the choking hazard and like because those laws are strict or something.
Yeah, I believe the thing I've heard was that you couldn't have the plastic toy inside of the food item because when you bite into it, you might bite into the plastic or something.
So you can't have hidden non-edible parts inside, like edible things. which is also why Kinder Joy was like produced and released and stuff, which I also didn't know the reasoning behind.
I heard that recently somewhere. Yeah. I heard that recently somewhere.
Yeah, they. Nice. So yeah, I assume like Kinder Joy is like available in the US like all year round. Haven't actually looked into that because like here in Germany at least it's like summer is you only get like Kinder Joy, and like all the other seasons you only get like Kinder Surprise eggs.
Really? I didn't know that.
From my experience at least.
Yeah, I mean,
it might not actually be 100% true.
The thing is, right, I've only really had Kinder Surprise eggs when I was actually like in the target demographic, and I'm pretty sure Kinder Joy didn't exist at the time, so like, you know. It strikes me as a more recent thing. Not like absolutely like not like very recent, but I feel like that was
totally be
when I was already like, I don't know, out of elementary school or something. I don't know exactly. Like somewhere around there maybe. So my fact of the week is even more dangerous than Kinder Surprise eggs. I know, right? Unimaginable. Give your kid a gun, great. Give a kid a Kinder Surprise egg. That's too dangerous. Sorry, I had to make that joke, and it always cracks me up. I was like, oh yeah, like guns, no problem. Kinder Surprise eggs, banned. So, have you heard of Baphomet?
No.
So Baphomet is a demon commonly depicted as having a goat's head. Also oftentimes shown to have wings, dark wings, a goat's head, and some horns. There's something burning on his head, I think, as well. And in some depictions also has breasts, though not always, although technically, based on the reason why it was designed that way,
yes.
That makes sense. Because apparently
Googling did help.
The image of the Semitic goat was designed with binary elements representing symbolization of the equilibrium of opposites, half human and half animal, male and female, good and evil, etc. However, I'm not here to talk about the image, although I did just do that, but rather the name. Baphomet goes back to the Knights Templar. In their texts, it first appeared and apparently originally referred to Muhammad, the Muslim prophet. And so I've heard that apparently it was like a mishearing or transcribing or something. I'm not 100% sure, because my other sources didn't specifically say why they used Baphomet instead of Muhammad, but yeah, so apparently they believed he was some sort of false god, which is ironic. So, like, idolatry and blah blah blah, so that is where the Baphomet thing comes from. And then it only much more recently, since 1856, the name Baphomet has been associated with a sabbatic goat image. So yeah, it's a very recent thing, Baphomet as we know him. But yeah, the name actually goes back to Muhammad, and the Knights Templar apparently didn't really like Muslims because of idolatry, which is ironic because obviously the only religion that is like harsher on idols than Christianity is Islam. So yeah.
Nice.
Maybe Judaism as well. I'm not 100% sure. Because I think that's it's an Old Testament thing with the idols, I believe. I mean, yeah, that goes back to the plagues, maybe? To the Egypt, Pharaoh, whatever. Doesn't matter. Handsome Show. We are once again playing Squirtle. As a matter of fact, let me open up the weekly Squirtle and then switch scenes. This is the weekly Squirtle. It's Square. It's Wordle.
Let's go.
And we're gonna start by saying bye, because we always do. Adieu. Because
Adieu.
we like covering our vowels.
Every single time.
No eyes, no use. I think that was the result last time as well. We do have some pointers.
Could be.
Yep. Okay. Well, the column needs to contain a D. But not in second position. I mean, you could try something that is like, D, E or something, but I'm not necessarily that convinced of it. Also, we could, of course, try for O, which is the one vowel we haven't yet attempted.
Mm-hmm.
How about older?
Older.
Because that tests for D in the column.
That word, yeah.
It tests for E in this row. I mean, obviously, isn't necessarily there. It could also be. I mean, this is the most likely spot statistically, but also realistically, it's not that much more likely. It tests for R, which we like. It tests for L that we like, and it tests for O that we like.
Yeah, can't think of anything to replace the L with, but it's a fairly common letter, so it's like.
I mean, obviously, we would have preferred something like T and S, but that's a lot of D's. Well, I mean, okay, we already knew one of those D's was somewhere. I mean, it seems to really want to tell me that there's an E there.
Yep.
Oh, wow. I mean, we know that the first 3 rows have no D's, but the second and third column both do have one. So they both have to be in this small 2x2 area. So that's something. I mean, it could just be at the end. I mean, obviously, words ending in D not that uncommon. Double D, could be other. I mean, it's not that likely, but well, I mean, to be fair, we do. Oh no, it couldn't be because no U. I mean, it could be adder. Something that adds. There's an A pointing down. There's a D pointing down. There's another D pointing down. There's an E pointing down. There's an R pointing down. I'm just saying. All signs point to it being an adder. Okay. Also, O in the first 2 columns.
Do you want to pencil that in already for the row?
I mean, I can do that, but I don't necessarily think that is that likely to actually be it.
Why not? Looks good.
I mean, I'm not saying
it's all the evidence so far.
Yeah, I'm just saying, statistically, it's like a this one is a 50-50, this one's a 50-50, this one's like a 1 in 4,
And then it turns out that it's the row above.
Oh yeah, because it literally could be. I mean, I think if we want to go statistically beyond just it seems to be in the row somewhere, and any score is equally likely. But if you actually go into the possible words and everything, I think D at the end of the word is slightly more likely than the second to last place. Same for R, but also not that much. And for E, this is probably the other way around. So, A is also probably the other way around. But yeah.
Okay, so one other interesting thing is that we do have an L somewhere in this grid.
Right. Somewhere, but not. It could be the thing is, it could be the top left letter as well. It's just that thing where it's it could be the top left. It could be, as a matter of fact, it could be any letter in the first row or column except for the second one, and then it can be the 3x3 in the bottom. So if you hadn't, technically, if we want to be really efficient in coverage, we could guess an L once we get back up here and just be if this is also not an L, then we really limit it. But
I mean, if to be like really, really efficient, we could guess an L right now as the first position. That would cover
first. Okay. Oh, right, because it still covers both of those, and because if both of them end up being grayed out, then we have in the bottom 2x2 we have an L. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate that. Second position could be an O for either of them. Just pointing that out.
Oh, true. Yes, we want to test that out. Anything else we want to test?
What is that?
Anything else we want to test?
Anything else? Well, we could test for D in the third column somewhere, but we could actually try for D in the last position just to see if our editor actually works.
Yes. Yep.
We could go for E in second to last position if we wanted to, because of these two hints, as in, actually, as a matter of fact, that works for both as well, right? Like these are also pointing. Wait, no, these are in the wrong column. No, these are also pointing at second to last position. That was what I was saying. Yeah, so both of these could be E.
Lotted is spelled with 2 T's, right?
I believe so.
Or is that even a word?
I mean, allotted certainly is. I'm not sure if just lotted is. I mean, I was gonna say loaded, but that's with an extra A. So yeah, I mean, loosed is a word, but I believe only with double O. With double O, because otherwise it would be lost. So yeah. Right, loaded you wanted because it would be very convenient. I mean, we could just try if it is a word. Because it would be a really good word for us to guess.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah.
It is not. That solves that question. Is Lord a word? I mean, obviously Lord is a word, Lord, but like Lored, as in, because lore without the D is definitely a word. Right? There is lore.
Yeah.
Like
let's try, I guess. Yeah.
Let me quickly see if the R is stupid. For some reason, I don't think it is, though. No, it's not.
No, it checks lots of...
Lodged isn't one, right? Oh, lodged could actually be one. You lodged a complaint. Is that how that's spelled? I mean, a lodge, as in a cabin, is spelled that way. Oh, is a lodge a cabin? I don't know, but, logged is spelled with double G.
Yeah.
Do we just want to try out things that they start with LO and end in ED?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, no. Load. Loped? Loped, like an eloped. But just without the E.
Huh.
It's a word!
Hey!
Let's look at some letters.
Few of them, yeah.
Huh. I mean, I couldn't help but notice that there's a lot of O's pointing right there. It's like a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, the fact that there was, if it was just one in the row and one in the column, it would be just as strong evidence, because, except that, of course, it does preclude some... Actually, wait, oh no, this one can't have one.
It is stronger evidence.
Because, well, I mean, they're both pointing at the same O, it just precludes this one spot from also being an O, basically. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think I see this. Well, I mean, in both the row and the column, there are still technically 3 spots that the O could go. I'm gonna just, for the heck of it, enter it, but
Yeah.
So that ED definitely supports our adder theory. Although, of course, this E means that there's no reason why this one now has to be an E. I mean, also, assuming that all the other letters are correct, which there's no reason for them to be. Well, there's no significant likelihood for them to be. It wouldn't probably not be like Adar or Ador. Not to be confused with Adore, which is spelled differently. Oof. I'm rethinking the adder. I mean, I'm I was never that convinced, but there has to be a D in one of those two spots. And DR as an ending is...
Oh yeah, it literally cannot be adder. Because like, no R's in the last row. How about added then?
That too. What added?
Yeah. To make it like even more ridiculous.
I was wondering, it's a lot of D's. But to be fair, like all of those columns actually have to have a D somewhere. Okay, wait. So, do we have anything about R's in? No, we don't. So we know that we know that the R can't be in the last position, but that could still be anywhere. Same goes for this. R could be anywhere. See, what do we have for the actual stuff where we're at? Well, the column needs an E, which we already have. Same for the row. I suppose we could...
Okay, so the first column needs to have an O in one of the last two spots.
Okay, it's not even a word anymore, is it? Odded. Odder struck me as out there, but odded is even more so out there. But I mean...
Are you not odded out by this word?
I mean, it is certainly odd. I'm not sure if I'd be odded. I mean, maybe it is a word. I was just gonna say, right, like, this looks... I mean, boa is a word. B-O-A is a type of snake. But, like, broadly speaking, kind of a strange sequence of letters to end a word with. It could be in the middle, like a toad, or road, or, I don't know, goat. Right? But, like, goad, for that matter. But, like, it's usually followed by something. So again, maybe it's not actually added. I'm starting to suspect.
It would be funny though.
That it would be. You know what? I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Just leave all of these there. I mean, no. If this, well, either starts with ODD, which is, well, oddly, I don't know, or the D actually goes there. Like, I mean, ode is totally a word, for example. So I'm actually fairly ambivalent on where the D's go. Actually, I don't know why I put the... I mean, yeah, no, I do know why I put the O there, but now it's not necessary anymore. I mean, we could try an O. We could try O-R-E or O-D-E as a start. Either one would get
actually, like, oddly would totally fit. Because we have limited the L to the bottom right.
Oh, yeah, we have.
4 squares.
Right. I didn't... I mean, yeah, having a word with an R, D, and an L is certainly possible, but... So yeah, I do actually like the L there. I mean, every time, man, every time. Okay, I do like that. I want
to actually switch to like a QWERTY keyboard and physically just change the keys around on your keyboard.
Yeah. Anyways, I do kind of want to guess the next turn, but we can still try guessing something first here. I mean, I guess we could do the thing again where we try something that ends in an L and just see if oddly could work. Also, if it doesn't, then we pretty much exactly know where the L is. Right? If we have an L as one of our last two letters, it's gonna cover two spots, and then it's gonna point to where it is pretty much exactly. So I do actually like using an L in one of the last two at the very least. It doesn't have to be the last, because obviously
Fair enough. Alright.
We could have an O as the first or second letter if we wanted to.
We still haven't tried a T.
We haven't tried a T yet, that is true.
How about hotel?
Oh, how about hotel? Well, test for the E that we already kind of know about. Well, test for that E that we don't know.
I mean, the E is kind of unlikely in this spot.
Yeah. H isn't the most common letter, but it is one that we haven't used yet, which is great. I did say the O was good, yeah. Okay, I do have a suggestion for an improvement, although that doesn't fix the E. But how about motel?
Isn't M a more common letter than H?
I would think so. I mean, if H is common, it's probably just because of like ish and stuff like that. But like, I don't.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think M is one of the more common ones actually. A motor hotel. I mean, it still doesn't fix the E, but there's no reason. Strictly speaking, there's no reason why it couldn't be there, although it is incredibly unlikely. These double E's are not that uncommon. Sure. Wait. Can we now?
I mean, just exchanging the E with an A is like that. That's not a word, right?
No. If we also exchange the T with a D, then it works. Modal.
I mean, yeah.
But then we kind of get rid of testing for the D again. Well, let's see. Where do we even need A's? Is it just in the first column? I think so, right? That's the only hint we got for an A. It doesn't mean that it can't also be there. I'm just... Oh, actually, wait, did we ever test S? No, we didn't, right?
Nope.
Oh no, the L is too early. Ah, shit.
Actually, no. We can still we can actually still piece together where it will go.
Which row?
The L can be in any spot.
Well, we know in which row it goes in, but we don't know in which spot exactly. But I guess might not be the biggest problem.
What do you mean? We will know the exact spot.
Oh, right, because it's it's crosses. You're right. How about molts then? Any notes on molts? Kind of test for like 3 of the most common letters that we don't have yet.
I'd prefer if we could exchange a letter for A in there. Because like we only have one hint for A so far. I don't know.
I mean, I suppose there's only one way to find out. Well, I mean, besides Googling, but like...
Yeah. It is.
It's a word. And yes, the L looks pretty good where we put it for oddly. As a matter of fact...
Yep.
It is the only... Oh yeah, it could also be in the very last position, but... Okay, so there definitely has to be an L there, but there could also be an L at the end.
Kind of likely, yeah.
So, okay, that is what we have. We also know there is an S, just not at the end of any word. That's a good way to put it, I think. Actually, no, that's not it. No, that is true. It's also true that it's not the second to last letter in any column. We also know there has to be one in this. Second to last in any column. It has to be in this column. So it has to be either the second or first letter in here.
Yep.
I'm thinking second, but I think we'll figure that out once. Do we just want to try oddly right now?
I'd actually think it's like the first, because we also have to fit in a T in the same column.
True. So you're thinking steel. You're thinking steel is what you're saying. No, it can't be an A.
The other kind of steel.
It could be an E. You remember how you said you didn't want an E there?
Yes.
No, it's good though. I mean, ST is more likely than TS, and ESL at the end is unlikely. I mean, we don't know for a fact the L goes there, but the L has to go somewhere. I mean, it could be sleet as well, technically. Gets us the same double E. Sleet as in hail, right? Like SLEET.
No, it cannot be sleet.
Oh, right, because the L can literally only go there.
Narrowed down the
right,
L
sorry.
to...
Yeah, no, you're right. Okay, so steel. We like steel.
Yes.
You know, what was it? On Saturday you go watch the Steelers game, and then on Sunday you vote. And then it's like, turns out that... No, wait. The other way around. No, it's Tuesday.
You're hovering over Sunday's the L. It's the other letter.
Yes.
It's the E.
Yeah, I was going to make that joke about how Dr. Oz said that people should vote after the Steelers game, and there wasn't actually a Steelers game that weekend. Which is really funny. It's particularly funny because one of the big criticisms of the fact that he was running as a senator for Pennsylvania was that he's not actually from there. And he's only lived there very very shortly, and I think he specifically moved there to campaign there. And it's like, people are like, "You're not even from here!" And then he blunders the football schedule of the local team, and it's of one of the two local teams. But it's like, yeah, it's just, yeah. See, we talked about the midterms after all. Okay, steel. We like steel. We like oddly. Okay, actually, do we want to do the Sudoku thing? Because it feels like we don't have a lot, but also we are starting to block out places where letters can go because we put other letters.
I am trying to, and the spot where we put the O, second place of second column or row, a lot of letter intersections are there.
I mean, yes, counterpoint. If we don't put it there, we have to put it at the end of this word, assuming that the T is correct. Which has a good shot of being correct, right? So...
I mean, it's either T... yeah, never mind. Yeah, no, we could...
So I actually do like the O there because of the stuff we found out since, which is the T. I mean, obviously, yes, there's also two R's pointing at that. I think that's
also two A's.
Oh, right, there's two A's. That one's new. I mean, maybe A there and then A there. As I said, there's a bunch of words like goat, goad, toad, those sort of things. So that would technically be possible. Because this one needs. Oh, if I say there's an A there. Then it's not TR at the end, right? Wait, it can't be a TR at the end anyways. So, basically, the R and the A, unless the A goes at the end, which it could be, in quota. No, quota doesn't fit because OU is in the wrong order, but Like it could be, but the other option is that it is OA or AO, which seems less likely again, especially because it would have to be AORT something or AOO something TR. But then it would have to be ROAT is what I was saying, and so rote
is aorta spelled with an H or without?
A or T. Oh right, TH is what. Wait, what is it? I was like, where does he want to put an H? But like, that's actually a really good question.
Because I feel like there's got to be an H in there, but
I'm willing to test it when we get there.
Yeah.
So okay, that, and then you looked at this one as well. You said there has to be an A in here somewhere as well. I mean, again, this is the most likely spot for it to go, but it literally has to go there.
Basically.
Unless the D is wrong, but it has to.
Yeah.
Okay. Which actually is not even that easy, because then it has to have a letter between the A and the D. It seems impossible to be another vowel. Unless, wait, is O-A-E-D? Oh, wait, it can't be D anyway, so that's fine. Okay, it can't be a vowel. I mean, it literally cannot be U-I or E, so unless it's another O, which also seems silly. It's not. Okay. So. Ozed doesn't seem quite right. Ord? What? I mean, I said goad and load. I don't think I ever said load, but it works.
Moody could, except that no M's in the entire grid.
Yeah, and it has to contain an A, right? That's the whole thing.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that was the big reason why I have the OA.
I kind of forgot about that part.
I mean, I have that too sometimes where I forget about some part, but I'm trying to think, assuming that the OA is correct, and what even does go, right? Like, because the only ones that I can think of usually have either a T or a D after the OA, right? Goat, goad, load. But I had other ones before. Strode. Oh, no, that's spelled differently. That's spelled with an O. That's spelled with ODE. Coat. Okay, coast has ST at the end, but still doesn't quite do SD. Oh, wait, right, because it doesn't have to be oddly, the D could actually totally go there. I mean, don't ask me what would go in front of the D then to make something DEE happen, but it could technically go there. So that is something like, again, like
yeah.
Goads, as in, he does goad. He goads. I mean, obviously it can't be an S, but like, what did I say? Load doesn't work either. God. The no S thing is actually kind of more difficult than it seems.
Yep.
Huh. Wait. Okay, I also just realized something else. It's not directly related, but it could. I don't know if it could help. I'm trying to figure out if we can figure out something else first, and then maybe get some letters from that. And so I was looking at this E, right? Obviously, we already have it in the column twice over, but the row also needs it.
Yep.
Those two prevent it from going in the first two spots, which leaves us with there ER something ED, sounds plausible, or there, which under our current theory will make it EA something something, which is not impossible. As a matter of fact, our current theory, I guess, puts a D there. because there's only 2 spots that the D can go. Well, 3, but the Y and the A are covering 2 of them. So, actually, no, it couldn't go with the A's anyways.
Yeah.
So, actually, it has to be one of the last 2. So, yeah, no, never mind. It has to go either where the D currently is or where the Y is. Because there's one there, and they are blocking them. So, that then means that... the EED is not bad, like read. But obviously that makes it more difficult what can go here. Also, if that is an E, then what the fuck is that word? Or like, is it... So that seems weird, right?
Yeah, I mean, if that is an E, it would need to be E or D or something like that, because like there needs to be an R in the column.
Right. So that is the E. Then the R in the column would have to either go in the beginning, like in Randy, or in the middle, like in Hardy. Which could be a name, Randy Hardy. It's not a good name, but it's a name. And I believe both those are also now.
SR
rather
is also weird.
Right, so you're saying it goes here.
Probably.
So Hardy would work, and SH would also work, so it's actually could be an H. Which actually would mean that maybe Hotel would have... I mean, obviously the other letters in there were also not great. We ended up, I think, having a better word overall, but this could be an H. Hardy, as in hard...
Yeah.
E. As in like hardish. I don't know. I believe that might be an adjective. Hardy. Hardy, yeah, like resistant. Like, yeah, hardy, I think that's a word. Let's see, other alternatives. Yeah. Wardy. Tardy works. Is it allowed? Yeah, I think it is, right? So tardy also works, ST also works as an ending.
Yeah.
It could be like, least. I mean, it can't be because of the L, but, or the A. But, I mean, it can't be best because it's too short, but like, so T also does make sense. T or H makes sense. Sardi, I don't think so. Darty, Farty, Gardy, Hardy, Jardy, Cardy, Lardy, Zardy, Sardy, Cardy, Vardy, Bardy, Nardy. Yeah, I think it's T or H.
Yeah. I would agree.
I guess I should say, assuming that a lot of the other assumptions we made are correct, which there are a lot at this point.
Yes.
I don't know. There's one thing on the question, actually. Often we want to try to solve the entire grid, or do we actually want to just guess one of the 2 words that we could guess right now?
Which word do you have more faith in?
At this point, I think
Hardy/Tardy or Oddly.
I think Hardy/Tardy, and I would maybe even prefer Hardy because we already have a T. We never tried H at all. That would be the argument there.
Okay.
So, do you want to just try it and see if that gets us anything?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Well, okay. It wasn't Hardy, but there's an H. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's Horde. Something. But like, I just realized that when it was like H, right? And assuming that everything else we entered is correct, which it doesn't have to be, but if it is, then that is the only place the H can still go, because it can't go in the first position because of this H hint. And, it can't be the last because it's what we just tried.
Yep.
Which also makes this most likely T. Well, there's...
Is it chest?
I was going to say there's behest, but that's too long. And I know there's Ghost, but I don't know if there... And Ghost, but I don't know if there's guest. Well, there's bar guests. So I guess... Yeah, maybe. But C makes more sense. Barghest is like a. I know it exists in D&D as a sort of goblin wolf thing, but I
I've
believe
heard
it is
that name.
actual mythological creature as well. Do we have any hints that we haven't used yet? I'm afraid the answer might be no. Huh.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, so yeah, I just checked the when we entered Hardy, didn't give us any new information except for the age.
Yep.
Well, except it did kind of give us new information in that we now know that the A couldn't, for example, be in what we assume might be oddly, which I guess is somewhat useful. Because then it can't be here, it can't be there, it can't be up there. So that's one of those two. So yeah, that does.
Yep. Yeah, so central column. You only have one letter left.
Also, the second to last row also has one letter left, which... Oh, is it Creed? Is it just a bunch of C's around?
It could also be Greed.
Oh, it could also be Greed, yes. Counterpoint, how's Coco spelled?
What?
How's Coco spelled? Like, as in the fruit. No, not the fruit, the whatever, like... Not coconuts, but like cocoa, like what do you make chocolate of? Because I think the English spelling of cocoa is a bit weird, and it might be that. I'm not sure it's that, but it could be that. Although actually no, that O is wrong. Never mind. Okay, you know what? I'll take a step back. That O is definitely wrong.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no. I'm like, it's something weird though. But like, so okay. Okay, so you are right. It could be G.
I think it's just COCOA.
Oh yeah, I think it might be it. But again, that A doesn't really, because it's usually pronounced Coco. It doesn't really make sense. There is an A there. So that's why I was like, and so I had the correct letters just in the wrong order. But again, like that O doesn't go there anyway. So like whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so C or G. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna. Yeah. I was gonna say keep that in mind, but like we're not gonna. So, E. I mean, okay, this one has to be a consonant. Because A and E, there has to be a consonant between those, and you said look at that, so it has to be a consonant, basically. So, Erted, Erzet, Erved, Erted, Erst, Erzd, Erft, Erded? No, that can't be. Erft, Erged, Urged, like urged, but with an E in the beginning. Irked, Earled? No, can't be. Erzed, Irkst, Erst, Erved, Erped, Earned. Well, earned sounds plausible almost, but again, it's just because it's a similar word that exists.
It's spelled completely differently, though. Yep. Well, not completely different. It's just like one additional letter.
Yeah. It's kind of wild how many letters aren't there. There's no M, P, U, or I, which I guess isn't that much, but like M and U and I are all fairly common letters. Erd! Sergej, to err is human. erred, like errored, but like just he made a mistake, he erred.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
error also makes sense, like in fairer or in, well, maybe not wearer, that's spelled differently, but like fairer, like a seafarer, right? Like someone who goes places. Bearer, like someone who bears arms, for example. I don't know. I don't think wearer is a word.
No, I think that's spelled differently.
Oh yeah, that's an extra E in there, right? Bearer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but fair is spelled with F-A-R-E. I'm pretty sure that is true. And seafarer is a word. I'm not sure if fairer single-handedly is a word, though.
Yeah.
And also then the question would be calf something O. So, assuming that everything else is correct, which we didn't really have to assume any reason to assume that anything we said so far is wrong, but also we don't exactly have a lot of reasons to assume that it's right. That O in oddly is kind of awkward for the column. At the same time, the column has to have an O, and it has to either go there or in the second to last position, and O read with double E doesn't strike me as a word. I think O read with EA is a mythical creature, but...
We already have an O in the column.
Yeah, first column. I was saying that O that we have is a bit awkward where it is.
Yeah.
For the purposes of the column, but it's also one of the only two spots that it can go, and out of those two, it is probably the more sensible.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like whatever the word is that we're coming up with seems kind of weird. As a matter of fact, there's once again the question of, do we just go for chest, see if that even is correct, before we try to figure out what goes in the first column?
Sure. Yes. Yes, that is a good idea.
Whoops,
I mean, we gotta guess that at some point anyway. It is.
It is correct. We got 2 bonus guesses because we also got tardy in the process. Do we just literally just go through and guess? I mean, we could guess aorta and see if it's even spelled correctly. Wait, do we have any new hints from chest? That's, I guess, the first question. So, no H's in that column.
Nope, not really.
Not that impressive. The E in there we already knew we had. No S's or T's in the last 2 columns. That's also okay. So, we said aorta. We wanted to test if that works the way we spelled it, right?
Yep.
Not only does it work, Sergej, but it's correct.
Apparently.
Honestly, that was a really good word for you to just randomly get. Okay. We need an A in this row. We knew that. We need an R and an O, which we also have. No T's, which is nothing new. Word only contains one A.
Yeah, no new information.
Okay, so if I try aired, that means we have to make 4 more guesses until we're done. If I try to guess for the row, we can get it in 3. If that is something that matters to you. However, if I try for the row, we need to have an actual word to try.
Yes. So rarer is a word, right?
Is a word. We've had a lot of random R's of places. And cargo. Yeah, cargo. And greed. You said greed. So yeah, rarer. Greed. And oddly, one of the first words that we got kind of close to begin with. Nope, no. That's not how I spell that. No, like the moment you said rarer, I was like, oh, cargo, right? Like it's yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't come up with like the word for the column, but like obviously C-O-G. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
But we already decided on 2 letters
Chest,
there.
aorta, rarer, greed, oddly, cargo, hoard, erd, steal, and tardy. I mean, aorta is an interesting word, but aorta is also certainly a fairly specific word. But I think overall those were gettable words. I mean, maybe not the ones we would start, like, the ones we would guess, though, like, most likely, but still words that were within our vocabulary, which is the big thing. Also,
oddly,
rarer
yes.
has 3 R's. This would probably also be a shitty Wordle word, because it doesn't tell you how many R's there are when you just try one. And so, I mean, I guess if you hit the letter R somewhere, you know it's there, but then you don't know this. Yeah. And this is probably a really hard Wordle word. But then again, I haven't played that much Wordle, actually. I've played a lot more Squirtle than I have Wordle.
Same, yep.
But, you know, I think it was a really good weekly Squirtle, though.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oddly enough, yes.
Yeah. I still don't know how you just randomly came up with aorta, though. Like that was a really good poll. I also don't know why I came up with
now I know it doesn't have an H in there.
I mean, I guess the main question is, why do you think that? And I guess the most likely answer is, let's see, does that work?
It just sounds like there's supposed to be an H there.
Huh. So I double checked, right? There's also no H in German. Because that's what I was like, oh yeah, maybe it's a German thing, because a lot of old German spelling would have TH in places where you would only have T in modern words, which I guess it is a modern word, so even if it did have, if you used to have it, it probably wouldn't anymore, but yeah. No H. No, I mean, I wasn't sure when you asked. I was like, oh, that sounds almost plausible.
I mean, apparently there's a company called that with the H.
Well, then the question is the company called Aorta or is it called Aorta? Which honestly sounds
no clue.
Sounds Spanish, right? Like Castilian Spanish, right? Like just, you know how I think it's the Castellano, the Spanish speakers from Spain that always seem to have a lisp when they speak.
Honestly, don't know.
So Aorta sounds like, because a lot of vowels and there's a th in there, which would of course be an S. But anyways, what do you? Oh yeah, right. Close set of questions. What do you fear most?
I
mean, it depends on how you look at it, right? I mean, in terms of actual sort of tangible fears, right? I mean, heights of spiders, right? I say it every time. But in terms of sort of more general thing, I guess there's been a certain kind of existential dread that I do occasionally have, especially whenever you think about, like, the places the world is going, although I feel like it's gotten a lot better recently. Like, this week, it's gotten a lot better. And so, but yeah.
I stick to my answer, people.
But yeah, I guess
people do a lot of stupid shit.
I guess, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that is true, but I guess more specifically, I think in terms of what worries me about the future, what I was talking about, is climate change and authoritarianism. So, those are fun things. Because
can narrow it down to people in power, I guess.
Right. And then, of course, sort of more specifically, I can also say death is one of the things that I sort of fear in an abstract sense. It's not that I, like, fear it as far as, like, I don't do things because I'm afraid I might die doing them. But it is probably one of the things that, like, on sort of a more abstract level, like, I would least be interested in, right? Like, I don't want to die, like, preferably ever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's a third universe and all of that, but, like, as long as there are still humans around, because as much as Sergej says that people are kind of shit sometimes, not hashtag not all people. Where would you most like to live?
Somewhere in like a colder region, not necessarily like at the North Pole or South Pole or something, but like where you have like reasonable summers.
Yeah,
and
so
like preferably also in a more rural area, not like in the center of a city.
yeah, so I had thought about
That kind of stuff.
Right, so colder is definitely something for me as well, not necessarily because it's too hot where I am, although sometimes it is, but especially because, again, climate change, right? So imagine you had a place that has, a democratic government that has colder temperatures, cleaner air, maybe a certain degree of self-reliance, maybe somewhat geographically isolated so that it wouldn't be involved in a war, but still connected enough to where stuff can happen there. And I feel like I've ended up with just being like, yeah, it's Iceland, isn't it? Right? Like, it's just, Iceland has some of the cleanest air, they have geothermal power, so they're not reliant on, like, outside sources of power. They have I think they have the cleanest air out of any industrialized country. You don't really lower your standard of living by going there. You don't really lose any sort of democratic benefits. I mean, I suppose I couldn't vote in Icelandic elections beyond the what is the lowest level? What am I looking for? Like I could vote for a mayor. I don't know what the actual
I don't know.
I guess I don't know. The sort of like town level stuff. Because fun fact, did you know that as a citizen of the European Union, well, I was going to say you have as a general view, but I realized that obviously you are not a citizen of a European country. But as the citizen of the European Union, I am in fact allowed to have a right to vote. I have a right to vote in mayoral elections, and I also have a right to run as mayor in any EU city or town that I live in. So if I moved to Iceland, because Iceland I'm pretty sure is in the EU, that's actually a good thing to look up. I believe it is. I'm not actually sure or not. Come to think of it, I'm not sure. Is it? Does it actually? Would it say that somewhere in the? If it isn't, then that whole spiel about how I would have a voting right there doesn't. Oh yeah, if I put EU, it also puts every time it puts Europe and neutral and okay. EU. All right. As a member of the EEA. In 2009, the Icelandic Parliament voted in favor of an application for EU membership and officially applied in 2009. However, 2013 showed that so the party the Roman independent they were holding in 2015 minutes. Okay, so they're not pursuing membership, but they have applied. Okay, so they're not currently in the EU. Okay, so I couldn't vote there unless I became a citizen, but still, right? And then also, it is part of the economic area. I think it might be part of Schengen. I should probably look that up as well, but like, whatever. Right? Like, in theory, like, I mean, obviously, most like to live, so it's not exactly like we're talking, it has to be reasonable. But just in terms of places that actually exist that are likely to still exist, I think they are elevated enough to where they wouldn't just drown in the sea. So I think just as a sort of place to go in case of climate change, and obviously preferably before other people get the idea, Iceland I think is pretty high up there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the downside it says remote, but that's also part of the upside again for if more wars start happening.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to attack Iceland. It's like, I think from a military strategy standpoint, Iceland is fairly worthless. Unless you want to have like a place to land in between going from like North America to Europe, I guess. But like, yeah. You don't really need to because flights can go there in one go now.
Yeah.
Are you more of a night person or a morning person?
I don't quite understand the question.
Dude, early bird and night owl.
Yes, that I understand. Night owl. Definitely at night owl.
See, the thing is, I'm not sure. I mean, yes, in practical terms, I live as a night owl, right? Yes, I don't know if it seems in some ways to be a natural inclination as far as, I don't really go to bed until I'm tired, and then naturally that means I go to bed late and then I wake up later, blah, blah. But I know that my sleeping schedule, if I don't try to at least keep some order in it, can also slip. And so obviously, as you know, if it slips far enough, then it can turn around again. And so it is possible that I could totally live as a morning person. I think one of the main reasons why I don't right now is because I don't live alone. And other people in my household are all more like of a regular schedule. So at night is when I get left alone. It's like, I sort of like every time, right? I wake up early. My mom comes up with something that I can help her with or something. It's like, and then after lunch, she really then is done with a lot of her housework and stuff like that. So then she's but it's sort of every time I wake up early, I'm like, oh cool, oh I woke up early. I guess I got some extra hours in the day. And then somehow my mother comes up with a way to just take that time from me effectively. And it's okay, why would I even bother getting up early then? Or unless I actually have something to do or somewhere to be, it's that time is wasted on me not entirely, not always, not 100%, but it feels like I get more mileage out of hours there in the day than earlier, so. But it's circumstantial, right? I don't know if I'm inherently actually a night owl. I used to think that for a long time, and but again, I think a lot of that is social. And so if I lived alone, I'm not sure. I might actually try, if I were to live alone, which probably not going to happen anytime that soon, but I might actually try to then be more of a morning person, because obviously sunlight is good and also keeps your electricity bill lower, but also just, sunlight is just also good for you from a health standpoint, and also it's better for your circadian rhythm and stuff like that. So there's actually good reason to try to be more of a morning person.
So, one thing I noticed from living alone for a month, because my parents went on vacation,
right,
was that I generally woke up earlier than when they are, when I'm living with them together. So, I think your theory has some credibility to it.
Yeah. It's also, again, it's something I thought about where it's right, if you were in a situation where you have, basically, you're alone, so why wouldn't I try to get up early? I know that for a fact that when I got up early on the regular, I never had any problems with it, really. So it's not, I notice when I get up early, sometimes I am more tired at first, right, until I've had my cup of coffee, which I don't think has as much to do with the coffee as much as just that you've had time to wake up. Although, of course, the coffee probably plays into it as well. And I don't think that happens as much if I consistently get up early. So it's oh, right? So it's just getting up early. It's not that I have a problem with getting up early. It's just that my current sleep schedule makes it so that I have a problem when I get up early. But I don't think it's a general rule.
Yeah.
Let's do one more, I guess, and then end it. Do you believe animals have emotions similar to human emotions?
I guess, probably not as complex, but close. Probably closer than you'd think.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question because it's presented as if this is a abstract philosophical question, but a lot of that, to some degree, we can determine that. And
yeah,
I think the answer is it depends. So it depends on the animal, right? As far as we understand it, the more similar they are to humans, the more emotions they have, effectively. And also, I think it depends a little bit on how they function, right? I was going to say it has social elements to it, but that's not necessarily the case, right? Just because something has a social structure doesn't mean they have to have more or less emotions, because as a matter of fact, from a social standpoint, sometimes less emotions might actually make more sense. But yeah, I think there's definitely that where it's mammals tend to have more emotions, I think, than other animals, although it is possible that other animals experience something similar to emotions that maybe doesn't work quite the exact same way. It doesn't quite use the same areas of the brain, but still, in the sort of subjective perception of the world, has a similar effect. I think animals oftentimes are, in general, more spontaneous in that way, where it's most animals, I think, their emotions will be more fleeting, I guess. unless there's like the cause of the emotion is like persistent, but because a lot of animals also don't seem to do as well as humans with memory, for example. I would say certain animals, like crows come to mind as being non-mammals, especially where it's like, oh, they're like really intelligent and they can remember faces and stuff like that. So chances are they probably also, although I'm not sure if they have emotions the same way that humans do, because again, they're a lot less like humans. But at the same time, like, they remember who treats them well, and that could be a fully calculated thing, but it almost seems like that would maybe be something like emotional as well. Who's to say? A lot of mammals, especially like cats and dogs, for example, do bond to people. So like there's definitely like that social cohesion, I think, does also relate to emotions in some way. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's about as much as I can say about the topic, but there are more answers out there. And obviously brain scans are a thing, and you can maybe brain scan animals. I mean, actually... Okay, so the reason why I say maybe is because mostly you have to hold fairly still for those to work, but also you have to be conscious to actually like do those kind of checks with like which area of the brain lights up. And so getting an animal to both lie still, and I think those machines also tend to be loud as well, which doesn't help. Lie still, and also while conscious is like, oh god, it's the whole thing. So like, yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Maybe with one of those mesh things that you can put on your head where it measures stuff, where it's like, maybe you can get an animal to just like not try to get it off, because it doesn't really restrict what they can do. But I don't know if those measurements are as detailed. But again, I'm not here to like propose an experiment for how to determine animal emotions. It's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. Not that it has ever stopped us from talking about topics, but hey, how about songs of the week?
Let's do song of the weeks. My song of the week is Fallen Symphony by Ludison. I guess you're not a fan. And that is not surprising.
It almost sounds like it might be building towards something. And so the question there is, right, like...
It is,
like,
yeah.
So, what I heard...
Like, the build-up is quite long. It's like 2 minutes or something.
Yeah, it doesn't particularly impress me, and I feel like there's not that much variance in that part, right? It almost sounds... I mean, it's not like it's one continuous noise, but...
Yeah, it's like...
I think it's also very compressed, which doesn't...
It's like right at the start of like the final build-up of the song. And can't really give you the drop of it, because like then the drop's just empty. Like, and that's generally the problem I have with presenting a small piece of music.
Like, the whole like
so
build-up...
I tend to...
Yeah, the whole build-up drop paradigm really only works if you have both the build-up and the drop.
Get like one of the early parts of the build-up, or like maybe the like actual very first part of it. And that's what it is this time. Yeah,
so in that sense, it's hard for me to judge the song, but obviously the segment just left me like, guess there's more to it. It's very hard to judge from that. I mean, it's obviously, I'm not blaming you, it's just, we can't exactly play an entire song. I mean, depending on how much commentary, there's an argument.
Especially longer ones like this one, which is like 9 minutes.
There's an argument to be made that if we like actually talk about the song in detail, then maybe we could just, but like, it's not how the format works. It's again it's a bit dodgy with copyright, and also just from practical terms, right? Like, it's much more likely to get the video actually taken down, which is ostensibly about copyright, but in practice it's just about how much also the companies are willing to deal with. I've had to cut out some of the week segments, for example, including in it wasn't last week, it was I think 2 weeks ago when I did one with Smokey. I had to cut out his song of the week, right? Not because I think we didn't, a 20-second clip to talk about how much we like a song or not like it or blah. I mean, especially that one, we talked about it quite a bit, right? So I think the fair use argument there is very strong. However, the company that owns the copyright blocked the video, and it's not like I can just, I mean, I could try to dispute it, but that's not going to happen. And so it's like, yeah, just cut it out.
Not worth
it's the easiest way to deal with it. So it's not like I want to go to court with them and stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah, all of that is to say, like, maybe the song is good. I couldn't tell. My song of the week, unless you had anything else to say about this.
Like if you want to specifically look up this section, it starts at around like 7 minutes in. So
damn, other songs be ending by then. My song of the week is No Anthem by Fiddler's Green. Note to self to check the audio levels of post. Which I know I'm saying it now, and if I checked them and they're good now because I checked them, then that means that you would have never noticed. But you know, I don't know. It seemed a bit loud.
Great song.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
So
heard it like a bunch of times already.
So yeah, I think I've had it as a song maybe before, because I did already have the clip lying around. Not the finished clip, just the audio segment and the cover. It doesn't matter. So I've used it in some capacity in a video before. It might have been one of the year-end lists that we did like once or twice. Actually, I think we only did the edited one once. Yeah, so I really like the song, and you know, every week I have to come up with the song of the week, and this week, because of reasons that I don't have to necessarily go into, but we only decided on our final main topic right as we started recording, basically. So I made the song of the week segment first, so I didn't have anything to go off of, and so I was like, what can I go off of? And so, obviously, I might have mentioned it before, but midterms are on my mind, and so I was like, let's see, politics, voting, it's like nothing out, and so like, after like 2 or 3 lateral connections, I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, no anthem. It's you know, it's about, well, kind of the opposite, but you know, it works. It you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that brings this episode of the Trash Talk Podcast to a close. You know what to do. If you like the video, give it a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. If Discord is in the link. Discord link is in the description. That's what I meant to say. And you know, comments are for comments. You know, it's almost like they name those things in a way that it's intuitive to use. So okay.
What's not intuitive to use is like the new YouTube UI, I'd say. But
right,
I think I was supposed to say that's it.
That's it.